Oh, Yemi, thank you for coming on today, my brother.
Hey, no problem, Matt.
Dude, congrats again on the release.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Is it odd for people now to associate you as one thing, like a filmmaker, when you're like, dude, I do 1,000 different things. This isn't like my end-all, be-all.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's people like to put other people in boxes, and I don't fit in a box. Like, I'm weird. So it's always kind of, I let people, there's people who know me strictly as a musician and don't know me as an engineer. There's some people who only know me as a professor and have no idea that, like, I mean, people who I work with, one person just found out that I played an instrument. I've been there for 16 years. Like, he was just like, I just found out that Yemi plays the drums. And I was like, yeah, I do that too.
Yeah. Which one of these hobbies came first in your life?
They're not hobbies. They all are part of actually who I am. That's interesting. So I would say the drums came just about a year before I started getting into computing. I built my first computer when I was 9. My dad's a rocket scientist, and we moved to the country because my dad worked for NASA, recruited my father, so we came over here. And so he one day came back from work and he brought like a motherboard and was like, would you be interested in this? And I was like, well, maybe. So I went to the library the next day and I got every like books on computers that they had. And ended up like, I didn't realize it, like stayed up for like 2 days reading absolutely everything. And then I came back to my dad and I was like, I think I can do this.
And did that kind of check your love of drums to the side for a little bit, or did it still run in parallel?
No, I was a terrible drummer that entire time, like 4th grade through up until my freshman year. The drums were just something that I did. It was just kind of something. I played classical percussion, so I wasn't really into classical that much, but it was just something that I thought was fun and I thought was interesting, but I didn't really enjoy the actual practice of it. Back then, my focus was martial arts. I was heavily into martial arts for most of my youth.
Which particular?
A lot, because I'm me and I'm going to, go to multiple dojos. So I started in Shotokan karate, and then let's see. So Shotokan karate, then I got into Okinawan Okinawan styles for a couple years. And then, so that's like Shonryu. Then what else? Like, I am like blanking, and this was like a huge part of my life. Then I went through a Korean phase where I studied Taekwondo, Mudokwan, Hapkido, and because of Hapkido, I started Aikido for a couple years. So martial art, like most of my friends from Cleveland are always like, are you still fighting, man? Because I used to compete. Like I did national competitions. I won several. It was something I was really, really good at.
Yeah.
And then the drums. So like when I was in high school, I was about 16 and I got hurt. I had a really bad injury because I also was so I did track and field, and then I also did karate, and I swam. I did like a bunch of sports. So like my body was just like wrecked and I hurt my back. And from that process, I was like, I really started to really focus more on the drums. So in high school, I started studying with this guy named Kip Volans out of Cleveland. He was a really popular teacher. And he actually was also a martial artist, and so he was able to kind of like bridge. A lot of drummers are martial artists, like surprisingly. Like Buddy Rich was a martial artist. Like you can go through just like tons and tons of. Johnny Carson was a drummer and a martial artist. There's a lot of people who were both drummers, or they did one or the other or both.
Yeah.
And so he was kind of really able to steer me towards the drums and got me heavy into James Brown. Like, I sat down on the drums and he's like, all right, we're going to learn this one, and then we're going to learn this one. And then he just kind of kept feeding me all these James Brown tunes. And that's kind of how I started my obsession with James Brown.
Yeah. Well, even as a kid, when you say like, it's not a hobby, it was a part of me, did you feel that at 9 where it's like, I'm finding my sense of self in these really critical studies?
I would say yes, only just from how anytime I get back, hang out with my friends. I hung out with a friend from middle school a couple weeks. I went up to Cleveland last week to hang out with one of my friends from middle school, and she was like, "Yeah, no, he's been like this forever." It wasn't a surprise to her that I made a documentary. I've been watching documentaries forever. I watched this documentary, I did this. She smelt it coming like a long time ago. But yeah, I struggle to understand humans very well. I was raised in two cultures at the same time, so understanding American culture was a huge challenge for me. So I used a lot of these things as methods to get an understanding of people, music and martial arts and engineering and mathematics really have they do a good job of explaining human behavior. And they're ways for me to connect with other people. So for me, those are the places I just connected with people.
Yeah. So where did you spend the first 9 years of your life?
That's a complicated story.
Really?
So the first 3 years of my life, I spent in Ithaca, New York. My father was finishing his PhD at Cornell University. And then we moved back to Nigeria. And then I spent the next 5 years in Nigeria after that. So it's a mixed bag. And we moved around a lot. My father was a professor in the university system. So we lived in a lot of different cities in Nigeria. So he'd teach somewhere for a year or two, then go to the next school and teach for another 2 years, and then go to another school for 2 years until we eventually settled in Lagos, where he'd received kind of a full-time teaching position, and then he got recruited by NASA, and then we moved to Huntsville, Alabama.
What was the language of the household when you were a kid?
So Nigeria is an English-speaking nation, but my parents spoke Yoruba, which is that's my culture and my people. And so I learned that language. So I learned English and that at the same time. So it's a weird thing.
Yeah. So as a kid, we were talking about learning American culture through these mediums. What was kind of the oddest thing to you as a 9-year-old kid looking around at your peers and wondering why they don't get it?
The oddest thing in American culture for me is camping. I don't understand why you people need to pretend like you're homeless, to chill out. There's just play the drums. You'll chill out super fast.
Yeah.
They'll give you an hour of chill out every day. I never understood camping. And when we first moved here, our first weekend in the U.S., the people in our church were like, we're going on, all the kids are doing a camping retreat. And they took me camping, and it was like a horror movie. It was everything, I'm a foreign child. I'm hearing all these noises in the woods of things I've never heard in my life before because, there's no anything that goes, ooh, 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 in the middle of the night in Africa. So I'm scared out of my mind in the U.S., my first weekend in Alabama with, a bunch of people who probably didn't want me there in the first place.
That's a geek, dude. So was finding out that drums was this mechanism of relaxing yourself something that you intended when you got in, or was it a side effect you found once you really dug?
So I should add that I was one of the first diagnoses of ADHD in the 90s at the Cleveland Clinic.
Really?
Yeah. I was the Cleveland Clinic's first diagnosis of ADHD. I remember the doctor walked in and he said, we had a meeting this morning and you are our first official one. ADD was the thing, but the separation of ADHD.
Can you describe the separation between the two?
Now we have a better understanding that ADD has always been ADHD. We're looking at the same thing, but there's different classes and different types of neuroatypical behavior. So, it's always been ADD, but to make the distinction of the hyperactive, because that just was a different separation of how you define the inability to pay attention to certain things. So it wasn't we're talking, having conversation, I can't pay attention to that. It's more that there may be some sort of social rule or custom that 90% of the time I'm remembering and I can understand, like, but then there's this like 10% of the time when I've completely forgotten and I'm hyper focused on some other thing that I've forgotten social graces.
How old were you when this happened?
I mean, I think I've always been like this.
Or no, when the diagnosis happened.
Oh, I was 9, so this is when we were living, like 9 or 10. So this would have been like in the very early 90s. Yeah,
Is this before or after you get the computer?
This was all at the same time. So I had a teacher that was trying, like I confounded a lot of my teachers where, like on my first day of school in the U.S., we got a reading assignment and I was afraid because I didn't understand. I didn't know what the reading assignment was supposed to be. So I stayed up and I read the entire book just to be prepared. So I showed up to class and I told the teacher, I was like, I'm so sorry, I forgot. I didn't know what we were supposed to do, so I just read the whole book. And she's like, no, you didn't. So then she started like quizzing me and asking me questions. And I went through all of them and I was like, yes, this happened and this happened. She's like, oh my God. She's like, who does that?
You always been a fast reader?
Yeah. I also remember most of the things that I read for like ever. So I usually don't like watch things more than once. I don't read things. Like if I read a book, it's usually going to be with me forever, unfortunately.
So walk me through that thought process. So like you read a full book, is it kind of like a ball rolling downhill? If you start to remember some facts, the whole thing comes up? Or do you just have kind of instant recall of wherever you want to jump in?
A little bit of both. Yeah, so if I read, I'm really good at like reading a book that I will go back to like a particular page of reference like years later. I did that with my son with calculus the other day.
No.
Like he's a freshman in engineering, and he's going through like all the stuff that I was going through, and he was asking about a particular problem, and I was like, oh, and I opened this to a particular page. It's a genetic thing because my son can do it, my dad could do it,
Yeah.
my sister also has the ability of doing this. Like we just have it. It makes it really fun for romantic relationships because you're like, nope, you said exactly this.
Yeah, never forget kind of a deal. Like,
Yeah.
no, I don't need the screenshots. I can tell you before you scroll to it kind of a thing.
Yeah, but the problem though is that I still like it's not very helpful because like I lose my keys every 5 seconds. Like I'm always like I've now figured out a system that I strap them down to like things, so like it's strapped to my bag and
Yeah.
like my wallet, everything like is strapped to like one thing, so that way I have a better chance of making it through the day. But yeah.
So relate that to by the time you actually take on the task of this documentary and you're trying to organize all this information, and it's like very visceral. It's at the tip of your fingers, but taking that to a chopping block, like what is it, an hour, 6 minutes or something like that? How long is this?
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. So the thing that I did is so I sat through all the interviews and I prepped all the interviews and prepped all the questions. So there's like a process to each one of the interviews. And then I watched all the interviews and memorized all the interviews. Then I read through all of the transcripts and memorized all the transcripts. And then in my head, I started to piece together what I wanted to be in the documentary.
And how you do that? Long walks by yourself, just kind of thinking through it all, or
it's just like, so I read all the transcripts on a flight to Seattle when I was going to go see one of my friends. I watched everything just kind of like at night, like, so like your normal like TV time, you just like turn on the like your computer, your laptop, and you just sit and you just watch all the interviews.
Yeah.
And then I'm making what are called edit decision lists along the way where I'm like, okay, I like this and I like this. I had to kind of go through each one of the transcripts too and notate everything. So I made basically an index so that you can search through everything. And so from this time to this time, this speaker is talking about this. So I highlight it, put a section there, put some notes there, and like find like whatever it. So from the process of doing this, you end up memorizing everything. So I really just put it together in my head and then copy and pasted segments that I wanted. And yeah, that's kind of like the first step is like, you just have to kind of have it all in your head and start putting a roadmap together.
yeah. When as you start to think about all this, like what would you say is the section that you really wish could have made the cut but it didn't?
The PBS cut, definitely the Little Willie John section. So we have a director's cut that's 75 minutes. Then we have like what we call our radio edit, where we just took the entirety of everything, because I wanted to get. I learned so much in this process. Like there's so much information in my head, and I wanted it all. I wanted all of it. So all of the stuff that like they talked about this person, they talked about this artist. We go into depth about Cowboy Copus and Hawkshaw Hawkins and Bull Moose Jackson and the Five Royales and like all these groups. Like we have all of these sections on all of them, and basically strung them all together into what ended up being like I think like 3.5 hours. And I showed it to people because I was like, we've done it. This is my movie. We're going to make like, it's going to be this. And everybody hated it. Like nobody could remember any of the artists. You know, it's like.
Well, like when I look at the YouTube comments on the PBS posting of it, it's like all these people want to name off artists that aren't in that particular piece. Where it's like, well, this is clearly the condensed version. Like it's meant to leave you wanting more to some extent.
Yeah, so that's actually the big thing is that I wanted people to be left with this, because that's when you know that you're successful. When people want more information, you've done enough, you know. And we literally did cut it down to what would be engaging for somebody who's never heard about it. Because a lot of times there are people who are knee deep in the King records. Like they know everything and like they're obsessed with it. And I get it because I'm on that train. But for somebody who's never heard, which is a majority of America, who've never heard about this at all, you can't throw 25 characters at them and expect them to keep all of them. People are only going to remember 3.
And also when it comes to you have the transcripts, you have the concepts, but then when it comes to actually pulling materials to not only verify this, but emotionally kind of play into it, like when you start kicking in like the cartoonizations of the thing, that's when I was kind of like, I can feel all this creativity coming to a point where it's like, well, we need something to show them that verifies what they're hearing.
Right.
And there literally is nothing else.
Yeah, you know, it's hard. So a lot of people when you were talking about, a lot of people mention like all these other groups that they wanted in the documentary. And one, there's no footage of them. You know, like a lot of people don't understand that in order to make a documentary, you need footage.
Yeah.
Photography can get you some of the way, but you really need to have footage because it's film, like, and that's what you use. And with that, so one of the issues is that the cost of making footage for these artists back then was through the roof. And we're talking about African American musicians on the Chitlin circuit. So they're not making a lot of money. There's not a lot of yield of anybody investing money into this. So who's going to spend the equivalent of $100,000 to shoot an African American artist? Like that's just not there. So there's very few opportunities that provided those types of things for a lot of these artists, and finding that stuff. And even if you can find it, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Transferring it from reel to reel to 4K is, I can tell you, thousands of dollars. Like,
I didn't even think about that aspect. But then also like talking about the colorization of some of these as well. Like it was super fascinating to say like PBS, like, we did that, by the way. And I'm like, did they do all that? You know, you question about when someone needs to get their flowers and when they don't need to get their flowers.
So I didn't want to have those in there, but that was through a lot of negotiation. It's really funny because we have all these conversations about PBS, and PBS is really, really, they take their integrity very effing seriously. And So I started getting, while we were doing a lot of the stuff for the animations, I got really interested in color because I wanted to make the animations look like they were made in the 50s. So it was really important for it to have that same type of effect. So I looked at a lot of animations from that area, looked at like era and like looked at what level of saturation, what type of colors, like what were the color palettes that were possible then, and all of that stuff. And I started getting into Technicolor, and Technicolor is, we had 2-strip color in the 20s, and then kind of this fascination of a 3-strip color came out. And like if you've seen Wizard of Oz, they used 4 reels of film, but 3. So they had one that's completely green, one that's completely blue, and one that's completely red. And they filmed it simultaneously. The camera was like huge. And then they also had a reference one that's like classic traditional black and white. And then when you layer them over the top of each other, you get that color. So it's not real color when you see The Wizard of Oz. It's fake color. Because they just basically are layering, and then when they layer these colors, and then they also have the black and white there for reference. So like the black and white's still in there, because one people don't understand is in a black and white image, the color information is still there. You just need to filter it out. So what I decided to do is write a software application, because I do that for a living, that basically does that. So I took every one of the pixels and I converted them as if they were filmed in RGB, and then layered them over the top of it. And some of them worked out really well, and some of them look really weird. So for I decided to take it even further, and I looked at a lot of the machine learning research around colorization, because there's tons. And there's a bunch of different approaches. And so I basically read all the research papers. I took that too far as well. I read all the research papers. I'm actually having a meeting with my PhD advisor tomorrow to talk about actually like writing this down and like putting it down for my dissertation. But I read all the research papers, and then I implemented all of the research papers. So there's like 3 papers that I really liked that I thought were doing the best job. And I implemented all of their code from the research papers, because the research paper is just basically a how we did it in writing. And I just worked backwards from there to create their code, and using what they did, because all that stuff is publicly available, for each one of the projects. And then I found each one of the stages that I liked from each one of them, and I extracted that and I created my own thing. So like one had better color stability, one had better inference tools, so it'd be like, okay, so that looks like a jacket, and once you color it this way, okay, that's probably a brown jacket, so what a brown jacket would probably look like versus, so it would like help out in figuring out like the exact hues for each thing.
That's got to be one of the best days when you finish this code and you can hit enter and actually starts kicking stuff through. It's like it's the melding of your worlds.
Yeah,
you know, like that's so satisfying.
It was. My partners told me, like Ed and JP. So my primary job of my teammates is to tell me when to stop.
You're like, I might be a little obsessive at times.
Yeah, I am very obsessive. So like, it is their job to pull me away, and it's not an easy job, because like once I get into something and once I see like I won't stop until I'm done. So my partners, they gave me a deadline that I had, I think like a week to like dig into this, and I stayed up for the entire weekend and finished it by like Monday. But yeah, I didn't sleep that entire weekend and just kept like doing it over and over and over again. And I did it on Python notebooks for anybody who cares. So
what is Python notebooks?
It's like a lazy way of writing software, like, because I'm a lazy software. I've been doing this for so long that I'm lazy. It doesn't require me to have to do all the stuff that I usually have to. I don't have to do a lot of setup work. I can just basically get going, get my results, take my result, and move it into another system. I don't have to clean it. I don't have to do all this other stuff to it. It's just quick and dirty, and it's great.
So how hard is it to commit to one storyline then? When you're learning all this information, it's like the mind can run 1,000 different ways, and it's not like the through line of the film was decided the whole time when you're just gathering it up. Like there's 50 different ways you can go. Do you still want to go those ways now? Or are we like, no, this was the mission and I'm done here?
No. So from day one, I started with an outline. I read all of the books that everybody had ever written about King Records. So anything that had been published about King Records, I read all of them.
Was there a favorite?
They all have like different parts. They all have different things that they add. So John Hartley Fox's book, King of the Queen City, is the definitive King Records book, in my opinion. And it does a really good job of giving you vignettes, but it doesn't give you like the whole picture in some sort of timeline. Because the issue is that this is from the Roosevelt administration to Nixon to like Watergate. There's a lot of stuff that happens in American history.
It's a pretty hot time.
Yeah, like it's so like post World War II America, and then to like Nixon, to like it's like in a war-based education, history education, you'd look at that from World War II to Vietnam. You know, that's Korea, that's everything in between. And it's just a lot of American history, and a lot of things are happening. So King Records starts in country music because the major labels weren't in country in the 40s. King Records is one of, and a lot of these other labels are doing this. And because it wasn't in, everybody was into pop. So it wasn't in to do country music. It wasn't a style of music that people thought was viable other than for like gospel. So King and some of these other independent labels prove that there's a market there. And by the end of the 40s, early 50s, the major labels like RCA get into the game, and they basically pull the independent labels out of that game. So King no longer can do country post 1950. There's this emerging style of music from the black community that is basically blues. And blues is going through, it goes to blues and goes to jump blues and goes to all these different kind of things as it heads towards rock and roll. And that starts to be the thing where a lot of these independent labels are willing to get in on, where the major labels weren't. So King leaves country, bluegrass now becomes available, you know, because bluegrass had kind of a swing in the 30s and the 40s, and then all of a sudden it becomes out and country kind of takes its place. So King Records then invests into bluegrass. So this is when they start working with the Stanley Brothers, who had a great career at Capitol and did a lot of their hits at Capitol, and they come back to King and they re-record a lot of their hits from before, and then they also do this. So you have a lot of these, then you have rockabillys happening at the same time, and R&B. All these styles of music are happening at King. So like we had to kind of do a separation of, let's tell the story of country and bluegrass, and then let's switch to the R&B. But in reality, they're overlapping. And when you read a lot of the books, they don't do a good job of being able to, because King just goes so many different ways that you can't organize it in a way where you try to do it in an actual, like, here's in history in the 50s, here's what they're doing, because they're doing so much in the 50s.
Yeah.
So we kind of had to really just take it from, let's take you from the styles of music, and we'll take the entire style of music through its arc, and then end it, and then we'll go through the next styles of music and take it through its arc, which ended up kind of leaving out some stuff. So we had a blues section that we had to pull out where we talk about the blues artist, because it starts to pull away from the R&B acts and the important R&B acts. And then we start putting in all these R&B acts. And then it starts pulling away from, everybody now remembers Hank Ballard. People definitely remember James Brown. People are into the Little Willie John and Otis Williams. And we've got all these acts, like we got like the Five Royales, we got the Dominoes, we got all these different groups. And when we test it and show it to audiences, we kept finding that people would get confused at the storyline because there's just so much information. So we had to pull out the blues. We had to pull out some of these doo-wop acts. We had to pull out a lot of stuff. And just more and more, like when you start showing this to people, you start realizing that people can really hold on to three main characters in the film and two supporting characters.
Yeah. Does that remind you like your childhood frustrations? Like, I don't understand people. Like, why can't you understand all these things I've spent so much time organizing for you in such a clear way? Like, it makes so much sense to you that it's hard to understand it through eyes that have never seen this information and never fallen in love with these characters that are irreplaceable.
Right. You can't throw 3 hours. You can't throw an entire deck of cards at somebody the first time that they've ever seen the game of poker. Like, you can't just say, here are all 52 cards, throw it in their face and be like, play poker.
Yeah.
You know, like, you've got to start with a hand, you know, and it's better to start with, before you get to 7 cards, you really should start with 5, you know, like, and that's kind of the way we had to approach it, that we had to, if we distill the entire King Records story, what are the highlights that you'll come away with? So we really ended up deciding on, or I decided on, what are the parts of this story that everybody's heard before? So everybody's heard the song Fever. Everybody knows that song. I start snapping and everybody gets it in their head. You remember Peggy Lee, but you don't remember where it really came from. So that's the interesting thing. The twist was another one as well. So
The twist story is wild too. What was it, Willie? That's on. Like, I love the game show panel where they're trying to say like, who is the real?
That's
like,
Hank Ballard. Yeah.
Okay, that moment is so crazy that it's just like you forget that the radio had no face. We have no idea who's singing these tracks.
Right.
And it's a TV debut for this guy, and it's like
it wasn't. So,
not a debut.
Debut,
okay,
right.
Yeah.
But America was at large wasn't really outside of the black community wasn't familiar with Hank Ballard as Chubby Checker. I mean, it took the world by storm, and because of Dick Clark. But and the other thing too with the King Records thing is that there are a lot of controversies and there's a lot of stories out there, and I had to dig into every one of the stories. So, like with the Hank Ballard one's a great example. The story that we were originally told, and the most popular story about Hank Ballard and what happened with the twist, was that something either pertaining to Hank Ballard partying too much or being with a particular woman. He's either in Miami or he was in Cincinnati at the time, and he missed his flight to Philadelphia to be on American Bandstand. And they quickly had to scramble to go and find somebody else to sing this. And that is how they got Chubby Checker to do it. It's not true, unfortunately, because it really defies how things actually. It's a good story and it sounds great and it's hilarious.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the sense of like not betrayal, but just like the whitewashing of the content at that point in time.
Well, it misses context of how things would have worked is the issue. So we actually had a version where we were going with that, or at least we were going to just kind of explain that nobody knows why. And then I started finding a whole bunch of interviews of Hank Ballard where he told a completely different story. And the story he told, I could actually fact check. So the story that he told was basically King Records, Dick Clark approached King Records and said, you guys have publishing for this. I would like to basically take this song and not have to pay publishing. Because people don't understand, Dick Clark controlled American music business in that era. He was the guy. He had the ability, he was a teenage god, and Hank Ballard says that. He was a teenage god, and people really don't understand what that meant back then. That if he put something on Bandstand, it was going to #1, period. Like, that's all. Like, he was a hit maker.
Yeah, what an unbelievable bottleneck to think that someone's in control of
that much. And, like, people also don't understand, he ran and controlled all of the radio stations in Philadelphia and Baltimore. So the twist became a hit in Baltimore, because Baltimore is a chocolate city. So one of his DJs was like, hey, Dick, like, this thing's a hit. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. The Annie songs had happened. So Annie Had a Baby was a song that Hank Ballard did. And Work With Me, Annie was the first one. And it spawned all these answer songs. Like, so Etta James has one, Roll With Me, Henry. It's great. But basically, because, like, you do put a song, then all these people would put up these answer songs. But Work With Me, Annie was... He first wanted to, what did he do? He wanted to find these, he was talking about sex, like having sex with this girl named Annie. And he tried all these different words, and the FCC kept, like, banning it for being obscene, so he couldn't get it cleared. So finally, there was a slang of work that it wasn't really popular yet, but it was kind of one of the phrases that people were kind of using, like the young kids were using. So he's like, I can use that. Work with me, Annie. So the FCC didn't know about it. So he got through. And then this, work became, people were like, oh, he's talking about how to get that on the radio. This was a big controversy. It was banned on lots of radio stations. It was a huge controversy. And Dick Clark wanted nothing to do with it. Because at that time, he was really dealing with sanitized music. It's pop. He's trying to have pop, not controversy. Alan Freed had Frankie Valli, and some white girl ran up and hugged him, and, like, that's what actually began all the issues with Alan Freed. But it was a huge controversy that a white girl had hugged a black kid on national TV. So he didn't want any of that because that sank Alan Freed. He saw that already. So having a Hank Ballard is a little bit of a you can't have him come there and do like Work With Me Annie. Plus, he has this song. He wants to be able to have something that he's in control of. So Hank Ballard being on the show was not what he wanted to do with the twist, but he liked the song and he thought he could make it bigger. So he approaches King and says, "Hey, I'd like to be able to do this. How about you guys don't charge me for publishing at all? And I will bring Hank on the show, and I'll make whatever the next song he has a hit." So in June of that year of 1960, I think it's like June 20-something, Hank Ballard appears on Bandstand. Right, so that's problem number one with the stories that everybody's kind of been going around saying that he missed his flight. He didn't. He was on Bandstand. The second thing is I also asked Seymour Stein about this, and Seymour Stein said that he was the first one to give a clue. He was like, no, it was a deal between Dick and Sid. He was like, there was an agreement between them. He's like, I don't know all the details about the agreement, but there was an agreement. Because he toured, Seymour Stein, who invented new wave music. He discovered Madonna. He discovered the Talking Heads. Like 80s American music is because of this guy. And he interned at King. So his job was to follow Hank Ballard on tour. So he'd go on tour with the artists. And he said that Hank was the perfect gentleman. Hank was never late to a gig. He never caused any headaches. That's why Sid Nathan loved him so much. He did what was needed, always. Which was different from Little Willie John, who Seymour had first gone on tour with and then decided that he couldn't handle it. And Clarence Avant actually was the guy who managed Little Willie John, road manage, who ended up being he became known as the Black Godfather. If you've seen that documentary on Netflix, Clarence Avant, his first client was Little Willie John. They left Little Willie John out of that documentary. I do believe that there is a section that they had to cut, but
yeah,
he was a headache. Little Willie John was a mess, but Hank wasn't. And based on that, so it's unlikely, based on Seymour Stein, that Hank would have missed Bandstand. It was the biggest gig of everybody's career. There's no way he's going to miss that one. And then the fact that he also appeared on Bandstand in that June also adds to it. And you're a musician, you record, like, you're not going to be able to turn over a song because somebody misses a gig. Like the amount of time that's going to take to find somebody who's going to be able to sing it, get the takes done, record it, and press it, and get it out in the 1950s was going to be wild, because everybody used RCA's pressing plant in Indiana. So that's why that's why he made his own records. There's a plant in Indiana. I actually used footage from it. There's a plant in Indiana that everybody used. There was only a handful of places that pressed. And the backlog would always take you months. That's why Sid was able to beat everybody to the market, because it would take him, you could get a record out in like 24 hours, where it's going to take you at least 3 to 4 weeks before your record's going to hit, because even if you've made it, like, it just takes forever to get it pressed.
The vertical integration, I thought, was one of the most interesting parts, because doesn't James then take that into his own business model when he starts to venture out on his own? He's buying up radio towers and he's doing his own pressing. Doesn't he build plants?
Well, he's using King's plants until he moves to Polydor. But like a lot of that stuff, like People Records, that's all stuff that he did at King, which is his first and most successful record label. But yeah, they have, to come back to the Hank thing, Hank was great. So there was no way that you're going to be able to come up with a response if somebody misses a gig. And there's no way you're going to schedule them on a show if they miss a gig, Like, you're never coming back. That's still to this day. If you miss the Today Show, they're not booking you ever again. You're done.
Yeah.
So Hank was on Bandstand. You can look it up on IMDb. He was on Bandstand. I talked to the Dick Clark archives. They don't have any footage of it, but they know that what the song he performed, when he performed, and who else was on the show. They have all that detail.
What song was it?
I believe they did Finger Poppin' Time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
His songs are so...
Every song, like Darren Blaze says it. Am I allowed to... Every song is about fucking. Dude. Like, every one of them is just about...
And his interviews especially, the swagger of that man, like, even as like an old man, you're like, I bet it was finger popping everybody. I bet this
like,
was an issue.
Hank had no problem with the ladies till like his 80s. I swear, like he was just, and he had like a really fascinating and interesting story. And yeah, so we had to dig into all this stuff and like find the actual like facts, like who played on, like the Twist is like the biggest controversy because Hank actually, the band that he wrote it with, and it was really written, the hook was written by his guitarist, and they were on a gig. And come on, babe, let's do the twist, or like let's do the twist was the hook. And they had been working on trying it, and Hank didn't really like it, so they recorded in Miami. And then Hank comes up to Cincinnati. He stays at the Manse Hotel, and he rewrites it. So, like the line, my daddy is sleeping, my mama ain't around. Hank's, that's like biographical. His father and his parents split up, whether his father killed his mother or whether she ran off. One way or another, she wasn't in the picture. And a couple years later, he dies. But he didn't have a mom that was around. And he had a very, like, dictatorial father who passes away, and then he moves to Alabama. But he put his story into the song, which, as you know, every songwriter, you just can't help it. And Hank then records it here in Cincinnati. He doesn't have his vocal group because basically over this song, a fight of some kind breaks up, and the band breaks up. So he can't use them for the recording session. So in town, Sonny Thompson's band was in town from Chicago, and they used Sonny Thompson's band to play. And then, and I got that from, I found an interview of Henry Glover from one of the authors, a writer from Modern Drummer magazine. And he was looking for background on James Brown's early recordings, and he didn't use any of it, but he still had the tape. And I hit him up, and he's like, I got the tape, I'll digitize it to you. So he sent me the digitized tape. And Henry, like, he asked him about, like, Henry's like, you don't know about the Twist? And, like, so he tells him about, he gets Sonny Thompson's band from Chicago. And then, so Philip Paul claims that he played on the Twist. Otis Williams, who is the backing band, so the ooh, pop, pop on that track is Otis Williams and the Charms, because there wasn't another group. So he lost his Midnighters, so he needs to do this recording. King just used whoever was around. So they had Sonny Thompson's band in town. Henry Glover calls that in. He brings in Otis. Otis works out, according to Otis. Otis says that he produced it. Henry Glover produced it, but Otis produced the vocals. Otis was the one who came up with the ooh, pop, pop, that part. Because if you listen to the original that they did in Miami, that's not there. And so he figured out the harmony part and kind of like the background melody and all that stuff. Otis Williams figures that out, which is incredible. Mm-hmm. The controversy between whether Mr. Paul was in the room or not is a murky one. So at first I was like, yeah, Philip Paul wasn't there. And then in that interview, because he said he uses Sonny Thompson's band, Sonny Thompson always requested Philip Paul for the drums and didn't always bring a drummer with him. Philip Paul also played on the Twist answer song. So when the Twist becomes a hit with Chubby Checker, they record an answer song. And so Philip Paul definitely plays on that. So whether Mr. Paul was confused about that track or whether he actually played on the Twist is big controversy. Yeah. And a lot of people expect like the person who's going to make the documentary to settle these controversies once and for all. And it's still kind of murky up in the, it really could have gone multiple ways, but.
Do these guys seem excited to discuss these controversies, or do they seem like pissed when it gets brought up? Like,
pissed.
Why? Okay, why am I not getting my credit at this point?
Pissed is one, and a lot of people were pissed at me. Before I even started, they were just like, they were already angry because there's so much stuff that since there's an expectation some of it can't be verified, there's been some dramatization, or there's just been some liberties taken in the storytelling over the years. So some kid coming around and like wanting to like squash all of this can be problematic, you know, like the response wasn't warm and friendly.
And it doesn't help that you're delightful. I mean, if I'm coming in pissed and you come in nice with questions, then I'm even more pissed. It's
right.
like, this guy's done his homework. Fuck. suck, you know?
Yeah, it did not go well. So there's a lot of people who refused to be in the documentary because they thought that I was going after this. And I'm like, nobody knows that Hank Ballard did the twist. Like, that's going to shock everyone. I don't have enough time to get into who played on the session. Nobody gives a shit. Like,
Unfortunately, like, we're not going to collect back royalties for you. Like, we just want to talk about the history.
we just
of this.
want to know what happened. And a lot of people are too deep into, so like a lot of people on YouTube, it's like one was Bill Doggett's nephew or second cousin. You know, he's like, why isn't Bill Doggett in there? It's like, I love Bill Doggett. You know, like, part of the reason why I actually got into this was Bill Doggett. Anybody who knows me knows I'm obsessed with the Hammond organ. I am now my own organ tech. I am that obsessed with the Hammond. I love the Hammond organ.
That's awesome.
Bill Doggett is like the god of the Hammond organ. Like, I have a Bill Doggett section that I can't use because when we test it, nobody cared. Nobody knew anything about Bill. There's so many parts in this that, like, my
and you're
heart
just, like,
was
deeply
just
hurt.
broken.
Yeah, oh God.
Because, like, my favorite things, the things that I love the most as a person, and my favorite parts of, like, King, is not in this movie at all. Like, because it's just too deep. Like, it's too
weird.
It's just too deep into, like, the facts that people, like, how am I going to explain to you who, like, first of all, nobody cares about the Hammond organ anymore. So now I'm going to tell you, like, one of, like, the most recorded, like, people who, Bill Doggett is the most recorded artist at King. Like, now I'm going to, like, get you to care about his instrumentals that he did on organ, even if they're fabulous. Like, nobody cares. And that's a lot of stuff. Like, one of the issues we ran into is that a lot of people were very hostile towards the potential of this film digging into being kind of like a fact checker or saying that this person lied or this, and it's like, I don't have the energy for that, and nobody has the attention span to care about some inter-family squabble. They just want to know what happened, what was King.
Yeah. Well, as someone just watching it, and, like, it gives you such a feeling as a musician of just what little moments make a difference in history and how that moment can proceed without you.
Right.
You can write great parts and they can end up in magnificent places, and you don't get to own that in the sense that you'll be remembered for it.
Yeah.
And that's tough, but, like, how did doing this whole project make you reflect on your own career as a musician and a songwriter and a producer and an engineer and all that?
That's a good question. I mean, it's made me a lot easier to work with. Like, for a long time, I've been religious about things. Like, in software, I was the king of religion of software. Like, it has to be this. You can only do it with these structures and these design patterns and, like, all of this stuff. And it's made me a lot more flexible because at the end of the day, like, what's the mission? You know, like, it's great to have things be perfect, and perfection is great, but at the end of the day, you have to be mission focused. So this definitely made me much more mission focused. Also, being people's boss changed things because, yeah, like, the way that I lead my team is very different from how everybody else does things. You know, I lead, and I learned that from being a band leader on a jazz gig. You know, I believe everybody's an equal. I believe we're all on a mission to not sound bad. And so we're all incentivized not to suck, and nobody wants somebody else to suck. And so how are we going to get things through without sucking is pretty much it. So if we focus on not sucking, then we're going to be good, you know? And, like, if we want to parse the details of, like, well, if we do this, this, and this, then we'll suck. Like, no. Just, like, keep it simple. Don't suck.
Yeah.
Like, and if it's sucking, fix it quick, you know? And that kind of attitude, it was kind of the approach to it. And then, you know, because King Records leveraged diversity, even though there's a lot of caveats to that, it wasn't perfect. In fact, it wasn't really that great at times. What I wanted to do is I wanted to have a diverse team help me make this. So there's, like, a King Records story about how Wynonie Harris was signed, which is hilarious. And Sid tells the story in this when he comes back from the whole thing. and he records it. And he would record some of their meetings, and that's the audio you hear of Sid talking. And so he's talking about how they go up to New York, and Wynonie Harris is having a foursome with 3 women. And he's just going to town, and they're like taking a break. So they go up to the hotel room, and he's on tour, and they're trying to sign him because he used to play with Lucky Millinder. Lucky Millinder is kind of the source a lot of the talent for King Records in the early days. So they're like, all right, so hey buddy, like let's talk about like signing this record deal and like all this stuff. So like one of the ladies gets angry, she leaves, and so he's just sitting here with these 2 women, and he's got this white underwear with pink hearts on them. And he's like, that's all he's wearing. And they're going back and forth, and they like till 6 o'clock in the morning, finally sign a deal. They leave, and then they go back to their business.
Oh my God.
And so that's a story that we wanted to put in the film, and I wanted to animate it because I thought that this would be absolutely hilarious.
It's so particular that it's like, you'll never be able to forget that.
You'll never be able to forget that. So fortunately for us, we had women on the team who were like, Yemi, no. And I was like, why? And like, Michelle Cruz, my art director, was like, that's not happening in this movie. You will turn off every single woman like who watches this will immediately stop watching that after you put this on, even if you tell the story. And I was like, really? She was like, yeah. And then we had other women who were there, and they were all like, yeah, absolutely not. This cannot be in there. And I immediately was like, okay, so next idea, quickly scrambling to be like, let's do this instead. And so like by having that, though, we had voices to be able to tell us like, hey, like that is offensive. Like you're not seeing it from this perspective. And there's a lot of other opportunities where that happened. And by having a team of people with different perspectives, really, really helped make sure that the film was focused on the mission. So what it changed for me is every single person on your team, every single person who you're working with, every single person who you're near has a perspective and has an opinion. And you don't always have to agree with it, but you should listen to it and you should try to understand. You know, one of the things we had a hard time deciding how we should deal with the Star of David. So there's a scene where James Brown, he would wear like a Star of David to negotiations to try to like
just to come in a little bit
curry
sweeter,
in favor with like Sid. And there was a Jewish person on our team who did not like this, like really felt that this was disrespectful. And I disagreed. And I grew up in a Jewish community, so I reached out to an old teacher of mine who became a rabbi. I reached out to a lot of my Jewish friends here in Cincinnati, a lot of older people, and they all came back with, oh, that's hilarious, that's nothing. And I started to kind of realize, okay, all these people I've asked are older. So they might find this to be funny, like, you know, like the older you get, the kind of less sensitive you are. This is a person in their 20s who is looking at this from a different perspective. So we had to figure out, how do we keep this? Because we did want to include it, but how do we make sure it's not offensive? And, you know, it took a couple weeks for me to really sit and like meditate and understand it. But what I really started to understand from her perspective, or at least what I took away, was the Star of David is a religious symbol, but it's also a political symbol. And it's more than one thing to a lot of people. And that's what she couldn't really articulate it, but that's what I started to understand. So we decided to keep the story in, but not depict it, because we didn't want to be, even if it's low level offensive, the fact that she flagged it was like, okay, there's something here. We need to make sure that we figure out how to best thread that needle. But it really has taught me, like, you have to listen to everybody. Everybody who has, if somebody throws in a thing, they're not being pansies. If somebody has a problem with something, it's a problem. And that's all you need to understand. How big of a problem, how much of a response you should have, that takes time to negotiate and figure out. But if somebody throws a red flag on the play, like, you need to listen.
Yeah, well, it's got to be fascinating how emotionally and subjectively history can be viewed. When you're saying, I'm trying to get down to, you know, brass tacks of this thing, what actually happened, but there's no way to do that, especially when it comes to interviews and someone's personal experience. Like, your memory isn't perfect. You might have a better memory than most, but it's like, at the end of the day, you saw it through the lens of your own life, which has a lot of other weights besides what's happening in the moment.
Right.
You know, and some people see red in these moments. You know, it's like the depictions of James and Sid fighting, I thought, were some of the funniest moments. Because you can picture them going to bat and then still being friends at the end. It's like, some friends just have that combative nature where they don't care about saying some heinous things to each other, and then at the end being like, love you, and then getting out of there, you know?
So that's, I always tell people, because I'm Nigerian, like, the truth doesn't hurt my feelings, and blunt is my love language. It's an entire country of people who that's like, you will see people cuss each other out in the middle of the street in traffic, and then, like, when, like, traffic starts to clear up, they'll hug each other, and, like, well, they just needed to take out stress.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's, feeling about it is like, no, he was just having a hard day, and I matched him, like, at his level.
Yeah.
But James and Sid had multiple reasons to work together. And we had to kind of gloss over a lot of the details. When we first, the 3.5-hour version goes into the specific details of how they sued each other, because they sued each other multiple times. And I go into all the details as to why and, like, all the stuff. And found all this archive around it. It was great. The longer James Brown section that we cut is, like, amazing.
Yeah.
But it's also like an hour. It's like a film to itself. And, you know, they were incentivized because James was really the one after. So Please, Please, Please does well, but then he has, like, several records over the next, like, 6 years that fail. So when he gets the opportunity to do Try Me, after that, he's able to prove that he can get a hit, and he's also able to prove that he can bet on himself. And because of that, James Brown, he's able to figure out how to get freedom. You know, when King is getting ready to cut him right before he does Try Me, he says, I'll pay for it. I'll handle all the costs for this, but I really believe in this. So because of that, it brings him to the table in a way an artist wouldn't be. Because an artist, you know, a record label is a bank with a high interest loan and a marketing company. That's pretty much all they do. So when you get signed by a record label, I'm always the one who's, like, not impressed, because I'm like, you could probably do better by putting a business plan together, going to a bank, getting a loan, and then hiring a PR firm. Like,
take out equity on your house if you want $200,000. You know,
I'm telling you, like, that. I mean, that's exactly what Beyonce's family did. They had, like, a $500,000 home. They, like, they took an equity on it and made, like, Destiny's Child. Like,
yeah, Beyonce doing Fever, by the way, was an awesome moment in that.
Yeah, it's really kind of funny because there's little Easter eggs in the film. I'm really big into symmetry, so you see the beginning of the film, there's a kiss from Bonnie Lou, and then Beyonce blows you a kiss. So you get a kiss from before, and then you get a kiss from today. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, because I do this, so there's all these little things, that there's all this symmetry that's kind of, like, hidden into the film, because I wanted to find ways of representing stuff that we cut. So I have all these things that we do, but that's one of a little nice sweet thing that we give you a kiss in the beginning and kiss you out on the end.
Is that your way of leaving room to come back to the table for the James Brown portion that got cut as its own standalone piece, as some of these other stories? Or are you like, I can't even think about what we're going to do with the rest of this right now. I just need to do the other things that make me me.
So there's a point in time when I had to make a decision based on cost. Like, so I either needed to put my cost efforts into making this expansive and exhaustive of a story, or whether I put my expenses into making it the highest quality of a film. And a film isn't a book. A book can be exhaustive. An exhaustive film is exhausting to an audience. So I really had to put resources towards this. And that means, like, music rights and footage rights are expensive as fuck. Like,
didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Really
it's kind of one of the things that people don't understand, that, like, it's about $10,000 a song to license a song in a film. Like, that's kind of average. And it's about $50 to $200 a second for footage.
They do it in a second?
There you go. Yeah.
That's crazy to break it down to that.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
and
it's
then
like,
you have to buy
let me
like
buy the clip. You know, it's like, no.
no, but then and you can't buy like just like 2 seconds. Like you have minimum, so you have to buy like some places will have like you have to buy a minute. Some places will be like you have to buy 30 seconds.
Dude, just getting kicked in the dick over and over
and over again. Yeah, and like so there's a lot of that. So like all this archive footage that we use, and you know we went like, and I was a little different from at least I've been told that not a lot of filmmakers go to the level of crazy that I do of finding who is the rights holder and paying them. So we paid for all of it, and yeah, it's super like this film was really expensive. But for a film, because a lot of the places understood what I was doing, really helped us out. You know, they gave us as low of the expenses that they could justify to stay in business. But because I mean, a lot of stuff is from like the 30s and 40s. People haven't asked for footage of Grandpa Jones. Like I remember the place we reached, they were like, nobody's asked for this since the 90s. Like for most of this stuff. So like they're like, let's find a way that we can make this work for you, because everybody, all of them knew how the entertainment industry works. This film is going nowhere.
Was this self-financed?
It was largely self-financed, but we were able to get some support from some organizations here in town. My executive producers, Dan and Fran Bailey, also put in a lot of money into the film of their own dollars because they believed in it. But, you know, this isn't the reason why a King Records documentary hasn't been made, because there's no way it's going to be it'll be profitable. It's just sinking a bunch of money into something. So I sank the money that I would use to buy my own home is in this film. The money I was going to be using to send my kids to college, I had to basically spend, I had to basically spend like the last 3 years focused on their homework to make sure that fortunately they were able to get full rides to college. I have twins, but
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I mean,
what a crazy side quest too, to be like, I got to finish this film and I got to make sure my kids get their college paid for by somebody else because my money's in the film right now.
Correct.
And also, you know, I can't imagine the cost of raising twins at the same time, where it's like everything comes in twos, double it, baby.
That has exactly been my nightmare. So like, a lot of people haven't understood. Like people are like, "What's so big deal with this film?" And it's like, this is like my life. Like I can't. Because a lot of people wanted me to stop. 9 years, everybody's like, 9 years and you have nothing to show for it.
Did it feel that way to you?
No, because I mean, like I actively knew what was happening, but from the outside observer, and we're in a world where it's easier to speak against something not happening than to speak for it happening.
Yeah.
You know, it costs you $0 to go and say that person's going to fail, you know, but to say that person's going to succeed, let alone help them succeed, very few people do that.
Yeah. Does it feel worth it now? And was there a moment where that clicked?
No, it doesn't feel worth it. You know, like I've dropped but my business partner and I have dropped over $100,000. Like we're both broke right now. Like I've never been this broke in my adult life ever before. I mean, I emptied out my savings. All of my gigs from 2018 till like today have all gone into this film. And like I was playing 3 nights. Like I had the Ghost Baby gig. I was playing, and like I've played weddings. I've played all kinds. You've seen it. Like
I've been around. I've seen you crushing.
I was gigging a lot, like 3 to 4 days a week, every week, on top of a full-time job. All of that money went straight to the film. Like. And that was income that I used to feed my family. You know, the reason I was playing was to put money into purchasing a home and like moving forward in life. And this project it became obvious that if I wanted to do this right, and if I wanted to do this the way that I wanted to do it, it was going to require absolute commitment on a level that is frankly stupid. You know, like there's no way I'm ever going to get it back.
Yeah.
And there's no glory from doing it, you know? And it was just kind of a tough decision to make, but like I was just too deep and just had to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the the most real version of altruism in this world kind of is artistic ventures like this.
Yeah.
Where you chose that a moment in time was too precious and too important to move on without having this format that is the most appealing format for the modern viewer to find it. It's like,
Right.
it could be in a book. That's exhaustive. Who's going to check that bitch out of the library?
Correct.
Nobody. You know, so it's beautiful, but it's also heart-wrenching. Because as the friends on the outside, it's like, oh, it comes out. I'm happy for Yemi. I watch it. That's cool. I see it. It's Billboard. I'm happy for Yemi. That's awesome. It's like, it still doesn't make up for the fact that life still has to be a paycheck to paycheck deal.
Right.
Or rebuilding savings. And then people say, when's the next one come out? And you're like, you have no idea what went into this.
Right.
You know?
Because it's like, my thing is like, I'm not sure if I want to do this ever again.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of people are like, oh, you're really good at this. And it's like, who gives a shit?
Kiss my ass.
It's like, I'm great at software and it pays wonderfully and I love my day job. But like, you know, like my big thing is like, I don't want to play gigs anymore. I don't want, like, I'm burned out of all of it. You know, I was hustling gigs and playing gig after gig after gig to pay for this film. And like, I want nothing to do with any of it for like a while.
Yeah. So what are you most excited to get back to now that this is off the plate?
To be honest, it's been like watching anime with my kids. Like seriously, just, yeah, my kids are in college, doing homework with them, like sitting home and getting back to like a routine of making dinner. Because like to do this, I have basically had to give up taking care of my personal needs, like doing laundry on a regular basis is like not been in my life for a long time. Like it's just like you'd really, all of the little things in life, I cut out all of that stuff. To save time, just to make this work. And yeah, I mean, just getting back to like gardening, like I finally like paid attention to my neighbors have been pissed at me because like I have this, like, I used to be crazy about my garden and I do all this stuff and like, it's like, it looks like a jungle. And I finally like cleaned it up. And like one of my neighbors was like, oh, the documentary, I get it now. And I'm like, thank you for being like mean girling me for like the last like 5 years because my garden hasn't been tidy because I've been doing this. And like, there's just all these little things in life of just getting back to being a normal person who goes out on a weekend. And like, you know, I've been supporting my friends' gigs because like I'm not gigging every night of the week. So like I can go see other people play and I'm happy to just be like an audience member comes. I don't even have to say hello. I want to see you perform. And then I want to go home like a normal human being.
Yeah. Did part of getting the flowers after the fact bring a level of frustration of people that didn't understand for the last 10 years and then they want to show up like they've been supporting you the whole time?
No, I'm not wired that way.
Good.
Because like the other thing too is I'm not wired for flowers either. Like I am unimpressed. Like I
That's awesome.
I am like the classic Nigerian father. Like I am not impressed by any of it. Like you would think that I'd like puff up my chest and be like, oh, look at me now. And like, to be honest, like even posting that stuff or sharing that stuff out is only because I want people to watch the film. It is only towards like the end goal of having people watch the film. But does it make me feel like this journey was worth it? No. Like, does it make me like happy, like some hater, like somebody who hated on me, like now knows what I was really up to and now knows it's a big deal? Absolutely not. I don't care. I didn't care about that guy when he was being hateful, and I don't care now. Like I don't care what people think. Like whether you're like, yeah, I mean, great job. I don't care. Like
it's beautiful and it's also hilarious just because like it's both sides of the coin. We're like, who gives a fuck, you know, just like the rest of it. So at the completion of that, is there any advice that you would give to artists of many form that are facing the consequence of, I'm gonna break my back to do this for a payout that is so indecisive?
Yeah. So now that I've gone through because like I made this film 5 different ways. That's the other thing that also people don't realize is that I first made so we did like a cut in 2018. We showed it at the Esquire. It was terrible. But I wanted to get investors. So like I had to prove to people that I could actually make a film. So then we made another version, and then another version, and then another version, and then we made this version. And so from that entire process, I basically I've released my first film, but I'm on my 5th film in reality. So one is, don't do it that way.
Good advice. Good.
Two, there's a lot of things that people don't think about when they put out art, and they're really hyper focused on the actual art. And a lot of people, especially musicians, are always focused, because I got into King Records to become a better music producer, and a lot of people don't understand the business of entertainment. When you are in music, you are an entertainer, not an artist. Like, a lot of people get hung up on the fact that they're special. You're not fucking special, like, at all. You're a piece of shit. Like, you just have to understand that you're not that special. There's, like, so many people that are way more talented that aren't even being able to, like, move forward. And then there are people who are famous and well known for this that are literally in the same position that you are.
Yeah, it's like a Korean kid and a 75-year-old grandma that both this groove way harder than you ever will, and you're like, fuck.
Like, and the thing is that they're not that's why the flowers don't impress me, is because one thing I've gotten to learn, I've gotten to learn from, like, people like Questlove. Like, it wasn't until they were on the Tonight Show that the Roots actually started to think that they were a big deal. I've been thinking they were a big deal since, like, the 90s. But, like you read Questlove's memoir, which is an amazing book, and talking to other people around him, you basically start to, like, figure out that while, like, you're putting out records and you're doing all this stuff, you still haven't made it. Like, getting to that point of making it is really, really tough. If that's what you want, then plan for that. Which means if you want to make a record and you don't care about being famous, or you don't care about getting it out, you just really want to, like, put stuff down, because a lot of people like to pretend that, like, they want that. Be about that. Like, put out because we've made all kinds of stuff that we put together that we never released. It was literally for us to get better at stuff. We've made all these, like, music videos and, like, songs and original stuff that we have in our vaults. And sometimes we show it to people, sometimes we release it, but it was really just to learn. If you want to do that, do that. But if you want to be in the entertainment business, then that means you need to start with 2 things: distribution and marketing strategy before you make it, which people see to be like selling out, but you are not going anywhere if you don't have an ability to distribute it to people so that they can get it and hear it. And if you're not able to cut through the noise, because, like, you look on Spotify, there's something like 20,000 tracks released every hour or something. Like, it's just like a deluge of information. If you don't have a plan of being able to cut through that noise, you are wasting your time, money, and energy. So I always tell people, it's like, do you have a distribution? Like, I talk to other filmmakers. It's like, yeah, I'm making this documentary about this and this. It's like, do you have a distributor? Because if you don't have a distributor, you are wasting your time. Film festivals, don't waste your time. You're basically going to give a lot of money to film festivals, and they're going to take it, and then they won't show you. Like, they mainly reject unless you do the politicking. You know, just like getting a gig, you've got to go and meet the bartenders. You've got to go you've got to make friends with the people who are doing the booking. You can't just cold call them and drop, like, a record and be like, book me. Like, it doesn't work that way. You have to go out and, like, do the politics. So, like, politics first approach, marketing first approach, and distribution first approach. You have to do those things. And then, after you kind of have those things in place, then you need to start thinking about what artistry you need. So you need enough of something made to kind of have those conversations, but that shouldn't be the final piece. Get your distribution, get your marketing strategy together, get all those things to, like, have the posts already written and drafted for the record, have the graphic design, because that's what people see. That's what actually people care about. It's surprising, like, nobody cares about your shitty song. Even if it's a good song, nobody cares. It doesn't really matter as much if nobody can hear it. you know? And you have to make sure first that if you're going to do something, what's the viability of this in the marketplace? And it's like a really dark way and an anti-artistic way of thinking about it. But in this day and age, it will go nowhere if you don't. That's why, like, the way that you do things, Matt, like, is really impressive to me, because a lot of people with your level of talented, and you're super fucking talented. Your voice is amazing. Brother. You play like a bad motherfucker. You sound dope, dude. Like, I love all the stuff you do. Your stage presence killing. Like, I've always respected you as one of the smartest musicians in Cincinnati, because one, you stayed in Cincinnati. You know, like, I've seen a lot of people, like, a lot of my students have moved out of town. A lot of former students of mine moved to Nashville. Friends of mine moved to Nashville. And it's great. Nashville is an amazing musical community, but they have 1 million musicians there. How are you planning on cutting through the noise? If you don't have a plan to cut through Nashville noise before you get there, you're just wasting your time. What you've done, on the other hand, is to stay in Cincinnati and destroy this region. You know, you book and you tour in a lot of places in the region that if you move to Nashville, nobody's getting to that level of gigs that you're playing for like several years. You're right there and ready for it. Those audiences are here. The sizes of audiences are here. And, you know, the way that you've managed your career is brilliant, you know, because it's a distribution first. It's a, where is my audience? Where can I cultivate an audience that is me, true to me, and will be loyal to me? And let me focus on that rather than what's everybody else doing. Where are all the kids? Everybody's doing that. Let's all go there. It's an effective strategy, but it's also a high-risk strategy where from you set up your own infrastructure because, I mean, you do your own merch. You do all your own stuff, dude. And, like, you're vertically integrated and you're on your own terms. And you get to create the marketplaces. You get to create the audiences and find the audiences on your own terms versus having to go toil in a city for years and years and years, get exhausted, get burned out, have your heart broken, have to, like, shore up your stuff, and then eventually get picked up by somebody on a gig or get picked up as an artist and then begin the process. That entire time, you're already moving into the marketplace. You're already doing your stuff. You have a market ready to go, and you're focused on being able to distribute to that market. And that's why I think that you're impressive, and that's why I think that you've been successful, and I think that's why you will continue to be successful in this industry.
I appreciate that, brother. You know, the best thing we have in this life is community, companionship that can discuss these things where it's like, we can talk about 1,000 things I'm doing wrong and maybe 50 things I'm doing right. I'm going to keep leaning on those things I'm doing right, and when people tell me I'm doing shit wrong, I'll just put it in that pile and hopefully start to trim the fat at the end of the day. But, you know, when you do look at these larger markets and whatnot, what's special about Cincinnati? Because they dominated in niche markets, they vertically integrated, and they found ways to go compete with competitors that they had no reason being in the same room as. Isn't that the highest fucking hope? And what you did with this film, for a lot of us, should be fuel on the fire. If you don't walk away from that with lessons of what you need to do with your career, then I don't know what you were watching. But, dude, I'm on a treadmill, like, bump up the incline, buck up the speed. Like, it's getting people in a place where you can believe in how these moments are going to affect things down the road. And, you know, it's amazing and heartbreaking to hear in these moments where it's like, how is this film ever going to recoup what you put in? That's not the important part. The important part is you're an artist and you did the goddamn thing.
Right.
And now when you look at what comes next for you, like, it's pretty limitless. And I think a lot of people are shell-shocked about what you're capable of. And I think you're the only one that's been quietly like, you have no idea. You think this is an estimation. Give me a limitless budget and the amount of time I just put into this, I will rock your goddamn world.
That's true. So, you know, I always tell people that Cincinnati is the dopest city in America. You know, there's so many incredible people making stuff. You know, I went to NAMM one year, and I'm on the Percussive Art Society drum set committee, which gives me a lot of access to some of the best musicians in the world. Some of the best drummers in the world are my closest friends that we text regularly. And I'm lucky for being part of the drum set community at large. I love it. And I went to NAMM and was all of a sudden like some like literally like music legends like walk by and they're like, "Hey, Yemi, how are the twins doing, man? I'll talk to you later." And like some rep from like a drum company would be like, "Yeah, I love like great time stopping." Like when they come to Cincinnati, a lot of the reps will like stop by. We'll smoke a cigar on the porch. I'll make dinner. We'll hang out. It's like a thing, and because they're my family. A lot of these people I've known since I was really, really young. And so like, you know, like Dave Weckl walks by and is like, "Hey, I've known him for a really long time."
The first time I ever heard "Hot Dog," the horn arrangement that he does, I have no idea what album. It's like I was like, Dave Weckl fucks. This is crazy.
He is an intense guy. He's like, that guy has taught me a lot about focus. Like if you come up to him and you ask him a question, and like you have his entire attention. Like his entire being is into making sure that like he's weird. Like he has to like help you. And if you're not paying attention or like you wax over, he gets pissed. Because like the amount of focus that he puts into every single note, he puts into answering every single question that everybody, like he is real.
It's one of the few guys I've ever heard that sends out a left-right submix where I'd be like, yeah, you should just take that.
From his board,
yeah, exactly. I wouldn't ask any questions.
He's like,
about him.
oh my gosh, I've seen that. I have seen that go wrong, like where some sound guy thinks that they can like out sound guy Weckl, and it's like, oh, you're going to learn today. This is not going to end well. Because, I mean, and he's right. He's very, very brilliant. But, like, so, like, he passes by NAMM, and, like, so these people who I'm, like, randomly talking to are like, who the hell is this guy? And they're like, what do you do? And I was like, I'm a Cincinnati musician. That's what I am. Like, I make music in Cincinnati. But I've been fortunate to study. I've been fortunate to get some support from some of these, like, companies. And I really believe in the craft of the drums, but I'm just some guy who like really practices a lot and like studies and like plays locally. And like this guy who's like a very well-known music producer is like, "Oh, so you're just kind of a local guy?" And like with this like the tone of his voice, and I was just like, "Yeah, I am just a local guy." And I just remember sitting there being like, "I fucking hate LA. This town sucks." Like,
what a great perspective to put on the King's records, where it's like, this is a little bit of fuck you to the rest of the world, so you know not to mess with us.
And it's not even like I came home and like I went to JP, my business partner. I was like, everything we do from now on is inside the 275 Beltway. Everybody can fuck off. You have no idea. And like it started out super strict. Like I wouldn't use any sound, any music, any like nothing of any. So if you look at some of the stuff that we made with, like, we did a series called Stir, which is it talks about like food insecurity in Cincinnati, and it talks about immigrants and that come up to make and the history of Findlay Market. Like we do all these like Cincinnati stories in the series. And like that was the first one. I was like, we're coming back. Like I came back and I was like, everybody can go fuck themselves. You go and learn why Cincinnati is dope. And like we will not partner with anybody outside of the 275 Beltway, and we will not use anything that's not made inside like this area. And we did that for like 10 years. Like we literally did. We started picking up some clients outside of Cincinnati, which kind of changed the rule. But and then on this film, we collaborated with somebody who does Ohio roots, but my editor he lives in New York and Boston. But outside of that, that's the only exception. You know, like our animation team, I talked to some of the best animation houses in the country, and they were willing to work on this project for like, because my idea of making hand-drawn animations like they used to do in the 50s, like frame for frame, like really like turned on a lot of people. Were like, let's go. Like nobody's talked about this forever. And I wanted to find a team in Cincinnati because of that NAMM experience. I was really hard pressed to be like, yeah, I could find this team from Chicago or this team from New York, but they can go fuck themselves. Like anything they can do, Cincinnati can do it better, cheaper, and more passionately. And that's what happened. Like my animation team, my art team, Michelle and Alex Walk and Christopher Glenn and like all these guys, like my art team, like put world-class content together, you know, like I would be hard pressed to find anybody who could have done that on that level as dope.
Yeah.
And so like when these people leave Cincinnati, like if you leave Cincinnati, like I unfollow you on social media. Like, I won't unfriend you, but I won't, like, I don't want to see your shit anymore. Like, because you're automatically stupid. Like,
Well, there is something about it, and I don't get to attest to that as much as you do because you've lived other places. I am born and raised, but when I meet someone that says they just moved here, the only thing I can tell them is welcome home.
yeah.
Because I really do feel like this is a place that people come back to trying to figure out what was wrong with somewhere else. And it's untangibles. It's something about the way the river's polluted and the clubs are weird and the people have this little bit of ism in their voice that who knows what the fuck it is. But it's enough distinction to be like, I'll live and die by that.
Yeah, and we decided to stand our ground here. Like and maybe that may change in the future, but it's kind of this thing that there are problems with Cincinnati. Please don't get me wrong. Like, Cincinnati is very small-minded. Like, the amount of times when because I didn't go out and tell people that I'd signed a deal with PBS. Like, I signed this years ago. Very few, like, I would tell some of my friends, but very few people found out about it. And, like, when I would tell people, and as, like, we got closer to the release, I'd, like, tell people, it was like, yeah, so it's coming out on PBS. And they're like, oh, CET? And it's like, no, PBS. Like, what do you mean PBS? Like, just the fact that, like, somebody from Cincinnati would be able to get a film on PBS, like actual PBS, was something that people did not believe was possible and couldn't fathom it and refused to accept it. Like, a lot of people thought I was exaggerating or just blowing smoke or all kinds of stuff. And it wasn't until, like, the Wall Street Journal article, the Billboard article, there was a couple of other, like, reviews that came out. And, like, as each one of those started coming out, like, I would literally start to see the light bulb start to sort of turn on. There's still some people being like, there's something here. But, like, there's just, like, one of the big problems that I do think that Cincinnati is an inability to believe in itself. Cincinnati is the dopest city in America, but nobody in Cincinnati actually believes that. Or very few people in Cincinnati believe that, which is hilarious to me because
that's super powerful.
Yeah.
Because when I watched the documentary, it feels dumb to claim it as your own, but I think that's what you do with art. It gives you a sense of identity.
Right.
It gave me something to say, like, again, fuck with us. Even try. You call the competitors you want to the ring, and too much of the time we do that with the guy across town. Not worth it.
That is not. And the other thing, too, is, like, when you see, like, the problem that I see in Cincinnati is everybody's looking to be at the top of the mountain. And that's not how it works at all. Like, especially in entertainment. Like, when you look at what was happening in the Seattle scene and the grunge scene in the 90s, it was not one band. Cincinnati, we're always looking to be the one band. Like, we're the one band that made it, and all these motherfuckers aren't serious. I'm the one that's serious. It was an entire scene. You look at the 90s grunge scene, it was a scene that came up, like Soundgarden and Jane's Addiction and
Alice in Chains
and Nirvana and Pearl Jam. They were all in a scene. When you see, like, the Detroit Kids, like, that's Jack White and Dan Auerbach's band and the Greenhorns, like all these, like, bands, like, some of them went on to be huge, like Jack White's now massive, but, like, at the end of the day, he was part of a scene, and that scene popped. You see, like, the National and the guys in the National, they were in that Brooklyn scene. They are Cincinnatians, but they're not a Cincinnati band. They're a Brooklyn band. But that Brooklyn scene with Sufjan Stevens and, like, all of those groups, they all broke together as a scene. And there's something in Cincinnati not understanding that or picking up that all of us it has a critical mass of Cincinnati groups that brings attention to Cincinnati. If we want to have a Sundance, it's going to be a critical mass of Cincinnati filmmakers. It can't just be Yemi. Yemi should not be. If I'm the only filmmaker that has distribution that gets a national distributed film for the next 10 years, I would have failed. That is a failure to me. Because that means that I did not open up paths and avenues for other people to be able to get distribution. Like, one thing I've been doing is I've been introducing people to all of the contacts that I have at PBS. Like, hey, this motherfucker, they're not quite ready, but they're bad motherfucker. They do excellent work. Here's some shit that they've done. Keep an eye on that shit.
Yeah.
If I am the only one that breaks, then I will not get an opportunity to do this again. If other Cincinnati filmmakers start breaking, then I absolutely will have more opportunities to do this again. And I'll have much more help and much more people, because there becomes a culture and like an industry. Same thing with like your band, man. You should not be the only band that breaks. You know, like there should be all these acts. Like if you're going to break, then there also has to be these other talented, like Maria Corelli. There's like,
there's Foxy Shazam.
Foxy
There's
Shazam.
Silmar. There's
all these like killing groups. Like if there isn't going to be some sort of collusion and all of those groups getting together and saying, how can we help each other break? Because it's not going to be one of us. Like there might be a first one, but it has to be all of us.
Yeah.
What is the best way that we can make this happen, you know? And the fact that we don't think on those terms, on this terms of us against the world, but we see it to be us against each other, ends up tearing, because at the end of the day, if some big person or somebody's paying attention to one act, somebody's going to shit talk that act to that one person who could make a difference. You know, if somebody's wanting to, like somebody has a lottery ticket, I'm going to give one lottery ticket to like one band. We shit talk each other to make sure that it's not somebody else, thinking that it's gonna like that's gonna help us. But what it just ends up doing is making our entire scene look bad, and they just move to another town and they hand their lottery ticket to somebody else. And then that lottery ticket ends up being distributed around that scene. And the fact that we shit talk each other so much and not help each other, like T.T. Stern-Enzi, who just recently passed away. He told me something that like broke my heart. He was like, I just want to be, I was like, hey man, you've been helping with all this stuff. He was very helpful, like introducing me to people and trying to get me to like get this film out. Which is funny because he first rejected my film from his film festival, but like he literally was like, I'm going to help you, but like, you're not ready. And even just to say that, you know, like that was really powerful. And really like helping me get my shit together and think about how distribution works. And he's the one who introduced me. He's like, I don't know how any of this works from a filmmaking perspective, but I know people who do. Let me set up meetings for you. And he did. And it really helped me understand like the entire landscape. And I couldn't have done it without him, without a Cincinnatian saying, let me help you. And I was like, what can I do for you? Like, we can put speaking engagements. We can do this. We can do that. And he's like, I don't want any of that. I just want to be helpful. Like, if I can help you, and if you're successful, then you can help other people. And, like, if there's a path, like, where people start paying attention to stuff is coming, because he's like, Cincinnati, you said the words, Cincinnati's on the come up. And if people start paying attention to this buzz, like, you are just one reverberation of the buzz. If I can help another filmmaker, that's another reverberation of the buzz, then you're going to help. And then that filmmaker's going to help. And, like, he had this expansive and, like, abundance mentality to the way that it works. And that's the way that you have to view it. And we look at it from scarcity. You know, I grew up in a third world country. Like, I know what scarcity mentality looks like. You know, like colonial mentality. Fela Kuti wrote a tune about this. And it's the same thing. We have this scarcity mentality in our community, our arts community, that ends up like ruining everything for us. You know, there's some like art, like graphical arts. There's this guy named Terrence Hammonds in town who is the dopest artist in Cincinnati. You know, Jamie Lee Curtis is like, celebrities wear his stuff like all over the place. But in Cincinnati, we don't blow him up. He's not one of the graphical artists we blow up. We blow up other people, and they're also talented in their own rights. But the fact that we have to wait for other people to blow our stuff up first, you know, like the band Wussy, they have a much bigger audience outside of Cincinnati than in Cincinnati. But they play most of their gigs in Cincinnati, and they're super Cincinnati. You know, but Cincinnati doesn't give them enough love compared to like Seattle, which is whack.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause Seattle sucks. I don't care what anybody, it's not a fun town. The music scene is not as good as Cincinnati's. The music scene compared to, like, I go to all these towns, I go to their jam sessions, they all suck. Like, you name, like, Chicago's music scene is killing, New York's music scene is killing, LA's music scene is whack. You know, like, Cincinnati is better. Cincinnati's music scene is better than LA's music scene. Like, the companies are there. So there's a lot of hype around it, but like the actual musicians here, pound for pound, will smoke anyone. Like Brandon Coleman, I'll step him up to any
Yes.
guitarist in Cincinnati. Like
Him
Phil
and
Tipton.
like Eric Rosenbacher, like
Phil Tipton on the drums. I will step up, and I wish a motherfucker would try to like play against Phil Tipton. Is bad, you know. Like there's so many, like Isaiah Cook's another killing drummer. Like I love these guys. Like these guys, like are my closest friends. So I may be biased, but like I don't see anybody who plays anywhere near like. I mean, we have so many good musicians. Like Brian Lovely, like we have generations of dope musicians. When I go to other towns, like there's just no, there's a lot of people who are mediocre, and then there's like one or two of these guys. We have several of these guys, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's really powerful, and I think it's something that we should help each other, and we should leverage each other's tools and contacts, and not look at it as if I give somebody a contact, then that diminishes me somehow. It actually doesn't work that way, because nobody gives a shit about us. And if you help them, and also make sure you pay it back. Like make sure like you help out the people who helped you, because that's whack if you don't. But like if you take that strategy very quickly, you start to realize that other people will learn about our community. Other people will hype our community because we hype each other. Yeah. And that's how all those scenes, like the LA scenes where you got like, you had Sarah Bareilles coming out in the early 2000s. You had Sarah Bareilles. You had, what this love is.
Maroon 5.
Maroon 5. You've got all those groups were coming up together. Like they played all the rooms together. And when they became huge, they still toured together. They still were helping each other out in the business. You still see them like doing some, like when one person's career starts to go on, but Maroon 5's up, you'll see their opener is going to be like a Sarah Bareilles or whoever else that they were playing with back in the day, because it's their scene versus the world, you know? And we have to have the mentality in Cincinnati, it's us versus them, and we don't. And that's kind of the whack thing about Cincinnati, because we have all the stuff that we need, but then we hate on each other.
Well, this is a great call to action, and I think the only right way to end this is like, you have a studio. Tell me the name of the studio.
It's Afro Sheen, but like, yeah, I mean, it's Afro Sheen Studios, but like, I mean, I only do stuff for myself. Like the stuff that we make and we produce is what we do. Like music is a tool in our arsenal, so it's not like we're a commercial place. But
okay. Well, I misinterpreted that, but you know, you do all these things to participate in the art, how you feel called to participate in the art, and it doesn't seem like you're happy or grimaced to do it. You just know you're called to do it, and you roll in different, and you roll passionately about that. It's like you're a maniac, and that's what I have really grown to love about you, from watching you do a friend's wedding to hanging out today. It's just, you bring a level of, we're getting this done, that we all need that kind of accountability.
Yeah, and if people need a wedding officiant, I'm there.
The Church of the Universe, what was the...
Universal Church of Light or something?
I need to see paperwork, I'm going to be honest with you.
I do, actually. I had to get it with the state of Ohio. But yeah, like that's funny. I forgot we did that. Yeah,
you crushed it.
That was
awesome.
A beautiful wedding, yeah.
It was a Princess Bride thing, right? Wasn't that like the...
Love Actually.
Love Actually,
yeah. We all sang. So I had the entire, like... it was a surprise to the bride and groom that we had everybody sing for them in the middle of their ceremony.
It was great, man.
Yeah, it was really lovely. I love that guy. Like, he's one of my best friends, and I was happy to give like a moment that was like precious. Because like, you know, when people get married, it's like it's like a community thing. It's not just these two people. It's like all of these other people who have to support your friends, support you in your marriage, and make sure you guys work your shit out. Yeah. And like, they have to be there to support. So like, in that moment, I wanted to have something that's like, here is us with music committing to this. And, you know, that's why, like, you know, this film, I'm going to do one more thing to like make this go longer, but this film is really about race and the state of our country. Because the real thing I wanted to do is have something to say about the fact that we are no longer communicating. We are no longer working in community. There's Democrats and Republicans, and you're right or you're left, or you're extreme this, or you're a progressive, and like, we're all defined by all of these things that put us in the subcategories. And I think a big part of it is because we no longer play music in schools. If you think about it, you listen to like how many bands and how many groups hate each other, like Oasis. the height of their like playing, they hated the fuck out of each other. But at the end of the day, they had to put their bullshit aside, get on stage and make music that people were going to be into. You know, and then when they couldn't do that anymore, they couldn't make music anymore, and they were done. But at the end of the day, music is a process that forces, especially children, to come together, leave your bullshit at the door, and get shit done. And the fact that we are having less music in schools and less music making, like with instruments, we've all become like into the celebrity of the whole thing, and not just like the fact of me and you getting together, doing something, collaborating on it, and having it be ephemeral, and that's the end of it. You know, it's not going to be on social media. It's not going to be like kept in the ages. It's not going to make you famous. It's just the two of us in a room making ourselves happy and like coming to a place of making something sound good. That active practice of doing it while we're coming up and not having that is made us only see divisions and see why I'm special and why my thing. Like so many musicians think that their like tone is like the special sauce, but music very quickly knocks that out of you. There ain't nothing special about you. You're just one piece of a puzzle of three guys, or three people, five people, whatever the size of the ensemble is. You're just a tiny little speck of it, you know. And it's a very easy way of like getting your head out of your ass. And out of all those things, playing sports, doing all those things, we've pulled it out of society and we focus on celebrity of it, which makes it selfish and not really focusing on the growth of it. And King Records figured this out. You have racist, like Cowboy Copas was not the most racially sensitive human being, you know? And Philip Paul had to play a gig with him and had to they had to find a way of making something sound good, despite the fact that Cowboy Copas was not treating Philip Paul well. And they had to work through that. And by the end of the session, they're able to communicate and they're able to put out a song, despite the fact they have like very big gulfs in their beliefs of each other. That type of thing is something that we need to actively do if we're going to be able to create a country that's a more perfect union. Because that's what the process is. We have to have the process of being able to disagree, and means that just because your experience means, like, if you don't like trans people, that doesn't mean that you're a terrible person. That means that you have room for growth. And it should be my responsibility to help you on that process of growth, not condemn you and say that you are less than human now and we should never have any communication with each other. Music doesn't let you do that. You like a particular tone, like, you know, I hate John Scofield's tone. You know, and anybody who like uses that, I can't stand.
I was worried you were going somewhere controversial with this, and there you go with that. God damn. Because
yeah. I'm not a big fan of Scofield's tone, but like I've played with people who like they've used that similar type of tone, and like all of a sudden I'm like, actually, this sounds kind of dope. I kind of get it. Like it's not my thing, but I understand why like people like this, and I understand what my role is to make it sound good. And I have to be like, I have to put myself aside, even though I think it's whack. I have to say, it's not whack. Why does somebody think it's whack? Because my job is to make it sound good. Because I'm not going to come on stage sound like shit. So, like, what can I do to help? And, like, music forces those muscles, and we need to practice those muscles. And even if you're a bad musician, you have to get into, like, that's why I think people should, like, learn a music instrument at any age. Get in a band. It's not so you can be famous. It's not because you're going to be good at this. It's because it's going to improve your humanity. It's like the most base way of being able to do this. And it's going to make you a better American. You know, making American music and the way that American music was created and invented is the perfect blueprint to why we should make this country better. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people, I hope people take away from this film. Because I think that's what we're missing altogether as a society, that we're no longer in these practices that force us to get along with somebody who we ordinarily wouldn't get along with, you know? Like, we've removed that to a place where everything makes me comfortable. I am happy. Everything's about I don't want to do that because it makes me uncomfortable. Okay, well, then that's fine. You don't get to do that. Well, then you don't grow. You don't grow as a musician if you stay in your comfort zone the entire time. You have to be uncomfortable to be a good musician. You have to be good at getting used to being able to see why Gamalean music is dope. At first, it sounds awful. and it's like atonal and weird, and it's got all these like it's like weird, but like if you get down on it for a while, all of a sudden you're like, actually, this is kind of cool and interesting. I can see why these people got into this. Music forces you to do that, and it opens your mind up so you're not as small-minded. And in Cincinnati, we need more music. We need more music collaborations with each other. Bands should be breaking, like, you should be having rehearsal groups with, like, you should have secret bands. Every band should have a band that's like a secret group that's one other band from another band to another band, just to get together and hang, just for your own edification as a musician and your humanity. Not to be famous. You should be able to make music for you. And you should also then have music that's for everything else. And it's like career music, but you should be able to be doing these things for you. And I think everybody needs that. You need some sort of activity that forces you to create something with other people. And it's not for famous. It's not for, you don't put it, you never post about it. You never talk about it. It is just for you. And music gives you that opportunity, and it gives you the perfect blueprint for doing it. And King Records, it wasn't perfect. Their racial integration, we can talk about that some other time. Like, they walk away from it, but they made an effort. And the effort that they made opened up like a path to a lot of amazing things they did. And their walking away from it is, I believe, why they didn't continue to be able to innovate and stay in the marketplace longer. But they stayed in the marketplace a lot longer than any of the other independents because of it. And I think in Cincinnati, we still have that opportunity, being we're on the racial border, like, of America's racial border town, And I think it's remarkable, and I think it's beautiful. And I think we should have much more collaborations across the way. And I think that's what this film talks about, really, is how you can do it in business, how you can do it in music creation, how you can do it in every aspect of your life. Coming together is always going to, how we made this film, coming together with people who are very different from you and who see the world very different from you. And instead of saying, oh, you don't like this idea, you're a pansy, instead of like condemning people for it, try to get your head, like, it's going to be hard, but try to get your head wrapped around where they're coming from, see it, and then try to find a way to bridge in between. It's not going to be exactly what that person wanted, and it's not going to be exactly what you wanted. It's going to be something completely different, and it's going to thread a needle. And that's where, that's how you make clothes. That's how you make everything. It's all about threading needles. And that's what this film's about. That's what I think is going to make us better. That's the message that I wanted to share. So when people on YouTube are talking about, it doesn't have this band, it doesn't have this one, that's not really what the film is about. The film is about how DEI actually was not a bleeding heart thing. It was a financially motivated thing, and it led to us creating the most precious and best parts of American culture. And if we walk away from diversity, all we're going to do is make things shitty. And if we don't understand that, and because look around, like, everything that's happening now in our society with a Democratic president and with a Republican president has been kind of shitty. And it really comes down to, we're not playing music together. We're not playing sports together. We're not doing things that we used to do, that were small. They were seemingly small, and they were seemingly not going anywhere, Some garage band, then high school garage band, it's not going anywhere. But those kids, they are going somewhere. And the tools and the things that they learn along the way in that garage, yeah, they're never going to become Timmy's not going to become a famous guitarist. He's not going to be a rock god. Fine, but he's going to become an accountant. But he's going to be an accountant that's going to be able to look across the table and understand where somebody's coming from and help them as an accountant. All of these people are going to go into their lives and create things. If music is the perfect place to learn how to create things without being a dick. That's all I got for you.
It's a beautiful message, brother. It's an incredible film, and come back whenever you want, Chad.
I appreciate it. I know that I pontificated and talked too much, but I'm really passionate about this, and you're one of my friends, so I can just just go. And
it's an open door, my brother.
I appreciate it. I'm going to cringe when I watch this or listen to this later, and I'm sure my kids are gonna knock me for saying something that was stupid, but. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to say something stupid, and I appreciate what you're doing, man. You're a bad motherfucker, man, and this is beautiful. All the things you do are really amazing, and I hope people support you and continue to support you. I support you because you've got a fucking incredible voice, and you play so well, and your music is just so feel good. I really appreciate the opportunity that an artist on your level and your caliber would care about having a conversation with me, and it's really touching, and I really appreciate your time, man.
We'll get back to it soon, brother. Friends, link to the documentary in the comments. Make sure you follow Yemi wherever you can. Much love in the meantime.
Oh, wait. Also leave comments on YouTube that are not hateful. I would really appreciate it.
Get in there. Timestamp moments that have touched your heart. Okay, peace, players.